coming up today on the Nice Guys on Business.
The way to think about this is it's your intellectual property or it's your creative property. And whatever you're really skilled at doing, you should be charging a lot of money for it because why not?
I agree.
If somebody else doesn't have that skill set, they're going to be willing to pay you for it. In most cases, not always. Occasionally you have people who just don't understand why you should charge for it. But I don't know about you, Doug, but I'd rather be paid well for what I do.
To be in power, you don't need guns or money or even numbers. You just need the will to do what the Nice Guys on Business won't. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community, we are in for a treat today because Gail Doby, she's the author of Business Breakthrough, Your Creative Value Blueprint to Get Paid What You're Worth, the #1 international bestseller in 5 countries across multiple design and business categories. Podcast host, which is really cool. She's an author. She's a coach. Gail, I'm ready to get paid what I'm worth. Nice Guy community, how about you? Let's get her on. Gail, welcome to the Nice Guys.
Doug, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'm happy to have you here. And I was so excited to know that you're a podcaster also because, God, that's my jam. And I know we'll talk about that as we kind of go through this too. But man, what a great topic. And one of the things that I wanted to, chat with you about when I knew that we were going to be talking about what you're worth, I want to talk about people's relationship with money because sometimes there's a challenged relationship. I don't know if people were taught that money is not good or money is the root of all evil, but why is it that people have a challenged relationship with money?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons that people have a challenged relationship, and it usually goes back to childhood. It's what you've learned from your parents and maybe their relationship to money. I have talked to so many people that I know, and I'm sure you have too, that really just have never believed that they are worth it. And also their parents may have had some things that they've said, such as, well, people that have money aren't very nice, or they're really not good people. And they have this misperception that they are going to be judged because they have money. And I think that's really unfortunate. I don't know about you, but I think money's a good thing.
Well, I can recall just growing up, my mom kind of instilling me the importance of good credit, money in the bank, savings. And so I grew up respecting what money could do, or the lack of money would unfortunately, how it could be potentially affect my entire life. And as I started to get out into the world, I realized that not everybody had parents as I did that taught me to have a healthy relationship with money. And some people's parents never talked to them about money. It wasn't that it was an evil word. There was no word. They don't know how much their parents have in the bank. They didn't know what the plan was for retirement or moving forward. Does it start with things like just balancing your checkbook, or is it some other stuff? Because, again, that was my mom used to say, hey, you should have an 800 plus credit score. Hey, you should make sure your checkbook is balanced every month. And I don't think that I'm anal when it comes to that stuff, but I do think I'm respectful when it comes to that.
Well, I will tell you a secret about myself. I have not balanced a checkbook in probably 40 plus years, nor will I ever do it again. I don't worry about it because I have an accounting team and I have a husband.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hire people. I don't do it anymore either, but it's I have people that do it. And I was handed off the relationship to somebody else because I was comfortable with somebody else doing it. It's not like I don't trust somebody to be able to do it. I just think that it's interesting that the people that don't have a great relationship with money are often the ones that aren't communicated to about money early on in their life.
Well, Doug, I agree with that. I think what happens for a lot of people, I don't know about you, but I grew up with, you don't talk about money. It's not a good thing to talk about. It's the elephant in the room, though. And if you are any sort of a business owner, you have to talk about money. You have to talk about it with your staff. You have to talk about it with your clients, because you're exchanging a service for money, right? So in that situation, it's something that you have to overcome that and not be uncomfortable talking about it. Because if you are, then you tend to push away the money.
So let's make the connection between what you're worth and maybe that relationship that we have with money. And sometimes it doesn't even go back to your childhood. It just might be that you've just never had any money, so that you're not a good steward of it because you've never had it to have to deal with it and responsibly. So make the connection between what people's relationship is with money and their value and what they are worth.
Well, that's an interesting question that you're asking, Doug. And I think part of the thought process behind this is, unless you've actually thought about how important it is to have money and to value yourself so that you get paid what you're worth, then you never really have enough money to pay the bills. Right. And so you have to kind of get to that point where you say, you know what, I really do deserve to be paid what I'm worth, and whatever that might be. But the reality is most people don't know what they're worth. They don't know how to put a value on that. All right. So if you don't know how to do it, you need somebody to help you put a value on your worth.
Well, I'd love to start there, and we can play a game, and we can use me as an example, or we can use a hypothetical as an example. Mm-hmm. So why don't we, any way that you want to do it? I'm an open book, so feel free to ask me any question that you would ask a client in a private setting that you'd want to know the answers to.
Boy, you are really willing to do a lot.
Sure, why not?
Okay, sure. Okay. So a lot of people, what I do, one of the first questions I ask when I meet with somebody is, what is your revenue for your business?
I got it. So we're probably between $300,000 to $500,000.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask these tough questions. You don't have to answer it, okay. But what is your net profit on that?
Geez, so we might retain I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm going to say probably a 50 to 60% profit margin.
Well, that's excellent. So you understand the value of how to make money. So if you're in the 50%, 60% range, you're in a very, very different place than most people. And so, for example, let me just give you some stats for our industry. We're in the business of interior design, and I personally am a coach to those designers. And the average for 15,000 plus companies is 7.67% net profit. Well, that, to me, between what you just said and what our designers end up earning, is a big, big difference. And so some of the people just feel like, oh my gosh, I can just do this. It's so easy. So why should I charge for it? So they are so caught up in what they do because it's easy and they're creative, but they feel like, oh my gosh, I can't ask people to pay me for that.
You know, what's interesting about what you say is the things that come naturally to people, which what I would consider, let's say, the gifts that people have that they have for the world. Those are the things that we tend to charge as in mass. We tend to charge the least amount for, but we should be charging the most amount for because it gives us the greatest joy. And so I do find that there's a lot of people that I coach through in the podcasting space when it comes to monetization is that, you know, they'll tell me, oh, charge $200 for that for an hour. And I'm like, you're undervaluing yourself by about 70%. Mm-hmm. So you need to charge much more than that. The other thing that I just want to just quickly mention is that we're talking specifically about, let's say, a podcast business versus I try to diversify my income from as many different things as possible. So the things that we're discussing today, Nice Guy Community, just because you know that I'm in the podcast production business that are out there that have listened to the show for any length of time. I'm just specifically giving you numbers for our podcast business. And that is probably that profit margin. I come at it and I'm like, no, I want to have a profit margin even larger than that. I want an 80% profit margin. I want a 99% profit margin. So, no deliverable cost, but all cost of profit. And not because I'm ripping anybody off, but because I really feel like the value that I offer is there. You don't necessarily need to have all of these expenses hanging on to the back end of your business.
Well, and I think the way to think about this is it's your intellectual property or it's your creative property. And whatever you're really skilled at doing, you should be charging a lot of money for it because why not? Because if somebody else doesn't have that skill set, they're going to be willing to pay you for it. In most cases, not always. Occasionally you have people who just don't understand why you should charge for it, but I don't know about you, Doug, but I'd rather be paid well for what I do.
Absolutely. It makes getting up a lot more enjoyable when you're actually able to make what you're worth.
Exactly.
So what are some of the basic numbers in terms of finance that anyone in business needs to really understand? Because I know it's not just your own worth. There also has to be some other things that go into the equation too.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think everyone needs to understand the basic financial statements. That includes a profit and loss statement, which is really talking about what's presently happening in your business. So what are you bringing in terms of payments from your clients or your customers, however you talk about it? And then does it cost you to produce whatever you're selling? And then what is it going to cost you to operate your business, whether you make $1 of sales or not? And if you subtract revenue minus your costs, minus your overhead, it leaves you with net profit. And if you know those four numbers, you're ahead of most people in business. And that net profit is way more important, as people say, that's your sanity line versus the vanity line, which is how much revenue you bring in.
Yeah, it's totally not about the revenue. I can't tell you how many companies, I forget where I was listening to this, but there was I was listening to a podcast, surprise, and they were talking about this company that was doing $100 million in business, and they were still losing about $20 million a year. And I'm like, hey, look, all I got to do is make $1 is of net profit, and I'm making more money than they are. And it is so crazy. It's not the vanity metric. I love, say that word. Say that again. It's not the vanity.
Revenue is the vanity, and sanity is the net profit.
It is so true. Oh my gosh, what a great way to say that. Tell me other things that people don't know when it comes to dollars and cents that they really need to get their head around so that they can understand the value that they have there on the open marketplace.
Well, first of all, I don't think you can determine what you need to charge based on what your neighbors are charging or what your competitors are charging, because it has no relevance to you. And I see that as one of the biggest mistakes that most people make is they will go call around and say, okay, what do you charge for your services? And they may have somebody play the secret shopper to do that. And then they'll take kind of a poll and they'll average it out and they will pick a number, and that's what their number is. It has nothing to do with what it costs them to operate their business or on how much they want to earn in profit. So I don't know about you, Doug, but I would rather have the net profit than all of the sales.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. And one of the areas that I had avoided, I spent 30 years as a bar mitzvah DJ, believe it or not. So spent 30 years, 2,100 bar mitzvahs, and those in my community have probably heard me talk about this ad nauseum. While the other guy was out there charging $300 to $500 to do what they do, I was charging $5,000 as a DJ. And they said, well, how can you charge 10 times more than your competition and still be working? I was working anywhere between 75 to 85 gigs a year at that dollar amount. And they would say, well, how is it that you did it? I said, well, because I wasn't paying attention to what my competition was charging me. It wasn't about what my competition was charging. It was more about the service that I was delivering to my customers. And when they're spending $150,000 or $200,000 on an event, which many of them were in the Washington, D.C. marketplace, they weren't looking at how much is this line item cost. They were looking at what value can a bad entertainer, which they were categorizing that $300 to $500 guy as the bad guy. How can that detract from my party guests actually having a good time? And more importantly, my family having the day of their life. So from the moment that we connected, I showed them what great customer service was. We never really talked about music and games and all that. They knew already that they were in good hands just because how I was treating them. And so I looked at it and said, I'm not paying attention to the competition because I don't deliver the same service that my competition does. I deliver an exemplary level of service. So I would encourage you, those that are in our community, to look at what you do and those gifts, the things that come so easily to you, that you're providing an extra value by being able to provide those great services. I'm curious what your comments are about that stuff.
Well, Doug, I think that's great. And one of the things I love about what you just said is that if you charge more, people will trust you more. I don't know if you have thought about it that way, but the fact that you were charging 10x what everybody else was charging, they had to say to themselves, this guy must be really good, or he wouldn't be charging 10 times as much.
The other thing that was interesting was the people that were paying me more treated me better.
Of course they did.
They didn't, if I was hired to go out of town, as an example, they would send a car, or they would make sure that I had a hotel room and all of my details were taken care of, or they assigned somebody at the event just to be like my go-to person at the event. They would actually bring in other people to make sure that my job was even easier. So the underpaid guy tends to get overworked and overcomplained also.
I love that.
And it's so true. And I love the level of trust. I never really thought about it from those terms, but yeah, you're right. I think when they pay you more, they trust you more as well. And I do think that is correct.
Well, the brain goes to this idea that if somebody costs a lot of money, it's like buying a pair of expensive Jimmy Choo shoes. And for females, if you spend $500 or $800 or $1,000 for a pair of shoes, you assume it's going to be a better pair of shoes, or at least a better style. And so people are conditioned to believe that if you pay more, you're going to get more value from it. So therefore, raise your rates. And I think, to me, that's one of the things I'd love for all of your listeners to get, is that you should raise your rates. I have a great story, and I'd love to share it if we have a minute. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
This is one of my clients. She came to me in 2014, and she had heard me speak at a trade show. And then she came to our event and she said, I'm really interested in talking to you about helping me. And I said, great, that's wonderful. So we did what we called a VIP day. So she met with me for a whole day. And I looked at her financials and I said, you need to double your rates. And she looked at me like, are you kidding? How do I do that? I said, it's very simple. You go back to your clients and you tell them that you're going to raise your rates. It's not going to be right away. You're going to do it within, say, 90 days, but you're going to raise your rates and you're going to double them. And she was petrified. She said, I cannot believe you're making me do this. I said, I expect you to do this before our next coaching call. So fast forward, she goes to and meets with 3 of her clients. These are all men who own their own businesses. And without a doubt, it was the most eye-opening thing that had ever happened for her. She said to me later, she said, I cannot believe you made me do it. But, every single one of them said, wow, that's amazing. Who told you to do that? I need to do that. So they ended up paying her twice what she had been charging them, and they had no complaints.
Again, very, very cool way to present that. And what's interesting about what you're saying is that even if, let's say, take somebody that typically has 15 clients, let's say, and they are delivering their coaching services and they double their price, they could lose 50% of their customers and still make the same amount of money. Exactly. Work less, make more money. I think it's a great example. So tell me some of the symptoms. So I'm going to put you in a doctor's gown for a second, and now you got the doctor's gown on, you got a scalpel in your hand, and you got the mask over your face, which unfortunately we've all been dealing with in the last couple of years. But we have this mask over our face. What are some of the symptoms that someone is coming to you with that you say, I'm the surgeon and I'm about to operate on you to fix that? So what are you finding that those symptoms are that you know that they're really sick and need your help?
Oh, there's so many. Oh, my goodness. Doug, I would say that one of the most common things that I hear is that I'm stuck. I don't know how to go to the next level. I've gone as far as I can go. I don't know how to get better clients. I don't know how to charge more. And I'm not making enough money. Those are fairly common things that I hear. And if people tell me all of those things, or even one, then I can probably help them.
What's amazing about it is that it's not unlike most people that need coaching services. They just don't realize, because they have their blind spots. There's so many, and they don't see what they potentially have as issues. Where is it that you hold the mirror up for them? What don't they see about the things that you are just talking about?
Well, interestingly, one of the very first things we do with people is we actually have them put together a budget for themselves personally, and then also tell us what their assets are. And we have this really cool little calculator that we use, and it tells us if they're going to be in business for 10 or 15 years, how much money they need to make over that period of time to make that happen. And then we put together a 3-year budget for them, and we tell them how to price their services to make the kind of profit that they need to make in their business.
Nice.
And so what we've found is that if people will be open to it, that we can teach them the basics of how to get to where they want to go, because most people have no clue how to charge more, and they need to have the reasoning why they should be able to charge more so that they can convince their clients, but first themselves, that they're worthy of charging more. So that's kind of, to me, some of the work that we do behind the scenes to help people really grasp what they need to do to run a successful business.
When did you realize that this was your thing, your gift? Because a lot of, especially from the background that you came from, you didn't have the trajectory to be where you are right now with the relationship that you have. So what changed?
Well, I think there were a lot of things for me. First of all, I have a finance degree, which was very helpful. And then I went into sales and marketing for a Fortune 500 company, but my friends would hire me to help them with their homes. And they started flying me to their homes to help them do that. So I ended up in design. And then eventually around 2007-ish, I started getting to the point where I thought, you know what, I'd like to use my business skills to be able to help the creatives make money. And so that's what happened, is I took my skill set from both parts of the left and the right brain and put it into a business. So I've been doing this for about 13 and a half years now.
So let me make a right turn here from your business of being an author and a coach, and talk about some of the stuff that you still are working on, whether personally or professionally. What's some stuff that you are stuck with, kind of dealing with? You know, if you had to go to an expert and to solve a problem, what would that problem be that you're working with?
Oh, you know, it's really interesting. I have no hesitation to spend money on coaching and support and training, because to me, that's what is going to get me where I want to go faster. And a few years ago, we realized in our company that for me to get to the point where I could eventually retire, I'm not ready to do that yet, but in order to prepare the business for that, I needed to have a leadership team. So I went and got training, and it was a system called EOS, which is Entrepreneur's Operating System. And we've been operating our business on that for about 3 years now. And it's a very systematic way of operating your business. And I think that, to me, was one of the biggest things I had to do, was start developing that leadership team so that I could step away from the business more.
Wow, what an interesting thing. And I love the fact that you are a coach that actually is okay with bringing in other coaches. You don't know everything, and you specialize the coaches that come into your organization and help you do your thing. So tell me a little bit about the book, why you wrote it, maybe some motivation, inspiration, what put the action in your step to put it together, and let's tell the people that are in our community, our Nice Guy community, how to get a hold of your book.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the reason I wrote the book is because I can't coach everybody. And like most of us that are coaching and teaching, we are here to serve, and we are here to help people be successful. And I decided to write this book, and I remember waking up at 1 a.m. one day with the title of the book, and it is the title that I'm using right now, which is Business Breakthrough. And I think all of us we have an opportunity to have a business breakthrough and to make more money. So that was my impetus for doing it. And I worked with a friend of mine who has a publishing company that helped me get that book written and get it out and promoted. And that led us to you, which I really appreciate this opportunity. So to find our book, it's on Amazon, but you can also find us at gaildoby.com. And you can find out a little bit about us there, but certainly go to Amazon or even Barnes & Noble to buy the book, either paperback or we also have it in a digital form. So either place.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes to those in our community that want to get a hold of it. Ken, so now you got my curiosity raised. Who over at BSP is your contact at your publishing house?
Oh, Rob Cosberg.
Oh, absolutely. I love Rob. Rob does a great job. He's a Mr. Busy guy, though. I have a hard time when I do eventually need to talk to him. I have a tough time tracking him down, but he's a great guy.
Well, he's probably out playing golf.
Oh, no. He's working hard. You should know
Yes,
that, Gail.
is.
He's out there
Yes.
working hard. Well, look, you're making a lot of relationships on the golf course, so it's important to do that. I would agree.
Absolutely.
Well, Rob, if you're listening to the message, congratulations and hats off to you for bringing Gail to us. I appreciate you sharing your friends with our company as well. And Gail, thank you so much for sharing your message with our community today. I appreciate your wisdom and you sharing it in such a great way.
Thank you so much, Doug. It was great meeting you.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to Gail Doby. All of her information, including access to her book, will be right there in the show notes. Just click over on the show notes to have access to it. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. And may the force be with them. They need all the help they can get.